what we've got here is we've got the smaller bear on the far side that has been sitting here fishing for quite some time. We've been observing it, just sitting in that little pool there, waiting for some pink salmon to run up. In the last 2 minutes, we've just watched this larger...
On this episode of Northwest Outdoors, it's part 2 in British Columbia, Canada, as the adventure continues at King Pacific Lodge. Join guide Norm Hahn in search of the rare all-white Kermode bear and observe feeding black bears. Also, go after coho salmon with a bucktail fly. Plus, learn a great brine recipe for smoking fish. Northwest Outdoors visits King Pacific Lodge in Part 2 on Princess Royal Island. Funding for Northwest Outdoors is made in part by Kershaw Knives of Portland, Oregon. Makers of precision tools and cutlery, Kershaw Knives strongly supports outdoor programming as well as responsible outdoor activities throughout the Pacific Northwest. Subaru, engineered and designed for all types of activities in the great outdoors. Subaru believes that enjoyment of the Pacific Northwest should be available to everyone. The Hap and Louise Eisenhart Fund. The Eisenhart Fund is a proud supporter of public television throughout the United States, placing an emphasis on education for the great outdoors. Energy Northwest, providing electricity for the Pacific Northwest, today and for our future. You too can help provide electricity for our future by reducing your use of electricity today. Remember, conserve energy whenever possible. On the last show, Northwest Outdoors flew by helicopter to hike a remote mountaintop near the Inside Passage of British Columbia. Part of an eco-adventure tour, heli hiking is one of the many activities offered by King Pacific Lodge on Princess Royal Island. After arriving by jet to Prince Rupert, a float plane delivers adventure seekers to this floating lodge nestled in Bernard Harbor. After viewing the incredible beauty of the coastal mountain ranges from 4,500 feet, fishing host Hobart Mans had a chance to sport fish for some hard-fighting coho salmon.
He'll just go away. That hook came out just that easy. Yeah. He's a great-looking fish. We're going to turn you loose, guy. You can go back down there.
Nice and silver. Great.
Close proximity to the ocean makes this area an angler's dream. Sport fishing on the open ocean, as well as salt and freshwater fly fishing on numerous creeks and inlets, provides no shortage of catching opportunities. Although hooking up with the big one has traditionally attracted visitors to this area, wildlife and adventure tours are becoming very popular. King Pacific Lodge is on the leading edge of lodges that offer many different activities for adventure seekers. During the month of September, this area sees an increase of returning fish to tributaries, making their way home to spawn and die. This is also the best month to view native black bears that come out to gorge themselves on the spawning salmon. One easy way the lodge has found to view these bears is just by hopping in a kayak. Norm Hahn is in charge of the adventure tours here at the lodge, and this afternoon he is instructing guests on how to kayak for the first time.
Is first of all, with your grip, you want your hands on the top and you want them about shoulder width apart. Put it up at the front of the kayak. You want to make sure that your arm is fully extended. That's it, and then just slide them in. There you go, and try and catch your pedals on the way down if you can. And as we're working our way across, I'll watch you guys and I'll give you any tips that you need. Away we go. Paddling around Princess Royal Island is great. As you can see, it's very calm out here. There's a number of small bays and coves, estuaries that you can get up into, which is where we're heading today. A lot of the estuaries contain a number of different wildlife. Right now, the salmon are up in the estuaries feeding. The bears are feeding on the salmon. You can get up close to deer and wolves, and there's a lot of marine life that you can get quite close to as well, such as harbor seals, sea lions, and humpback whales.
The hope on this bear watching expedition is to not only view feeding black bears, but also get a glimpse of the rare Kermode bear. Known as the spirit bear by the native First Nation people, the Kermode bear is a genetic variation of the black bears that roam British Columbia. Scientists believe that the presence of a single recessive gene in these creatures is responsible for the white coat. 1 in 10 bears are actually born with white fur and keep it throughout their lives. As Norm points out, this is an area that bears have been feeding. Maybe this will be the chance to see the Kermode bear.
If you take a look over here, you'll see the schools of salmon that are just hiding under the log. Over there, see the salmon under the log over there? We get over to the other side there, you'll see a lot of salmon carcasses. In the springtime, the bears are in here feeding on the sedge grass, because at that time about 80% of the bear's diet is grass. Then as the berries start to ripen, they start to feed on the berries, and then they eat a lot of salmon, fatten up, get a lot of protein for their for the winter. Man, is it beautiful in here.
Getting to a good bear viewing spot can require a little work getting through the forest. Once there, the wait sometimes can be minutes, or like this trip, no sightings at all. In those times, a visitor to this remote, rarely visited area will certainly be treated to a treasure trove of colors and textures, as well as contemplative silence. With the lodge a short paddling distance away and daylight waning, the plan is to regroup tomorrow and try again to search out the Kermode bear. On the way back to the lodge, something spectacular happened. A trio of humpback whales were feeding near the shoreline. The bubble ring is the telltale sign of an impending surge to the surface, where the whales engulf their prey. The second chance to see the Kermode brings much anticipation. Norm decides to powerboat to another part of the island, a spot he has seen bears feeding before. This trek, though, turned out to be a little more work.
Very good. Yeah, try and stay off the logs, Steve. They're very slippery. One of the reasons why we like this place for bear viewing is that it's quite a short river, and the fish are compacted in sort of a short area here, so the bears come down to the shoreline to feed. They can get pretty close on the other side of the river, you know, maybe 25 or 30 feet. They'll be right in front. So if you do have cameras It's fine to take pictures, but try not to make any sudden movements.
The waiting game begins, but in no time a curious bear pokes his head out of the woods to survey the waterfalls. He seemed to pick up a scent he didn't like, and then he was gone.
And just work your way up to that clearing right there.
After 2 tries to view black bears and hopefully see the Kermode, guide Norm wasn't giving up. Another boat ride took the group to a 3rd location for one more try. Norm found the perfect spot to view bears. And sure enough, as soon as the group arrived, one was spotted fishing downstream.
There's quite a preponderance of black bears to white bears in this area.
Yeah, on the islands up in this area, what the scientists have tried to figure out basically is what the proportion of white bears there are to black bears. On one of the main islands around here, you're looking at probably 1 in 10 bears are born white. On this particular island that we're on, they're supposed to number between 1 in 3 bears are born white. So there's a higher number of bears ratio-wise on this island, but not as many as compared to the bigger island down south.
The average bear, when he comes down to feed, what's he take? 2-3 fish at a meal?
And just observing that one, he had taken 2 fish probably in about 5 minutes, so they could be, their numbers could be quite high in terms of the amount of fish that they take. Some numbers, a general number is that they may take in a season 700 salmon.
Per bear.
Per bear. So that's quite a bit of salmon, and not only that, but a lot of the salmon that aren't taken end up going back to the forest.
But the extent of time that the fish are in the river here, as far as available forage, maximum 60-65 days probably.
Sure, yeah.
And they're doing 700 fish. That's going to be 10-15 fish a day then.
Yeah, it's a lot of fish that they're taking. Both during the day and at night. Most of their foraging is done at night, so we don't get to see a lot of the fish that they're taking. But we can wake up in the morning and see a number of carcasses that weren't there the day before, so you know that they're foraging at night. We're really close to these black bears here in this river. We have to, our main concern with guests especially, and with any time you're in here around black bears, is safety. I brought along with me some bear spray that we use. I've never had to use it anywhere around here, but I also have some bear bangers as well. Basically like a little shot that goes off and makes a loud bang and scares the bears, but I've never even taken that out of my bag.
While the Kermode bear has been sighted in northeastern British Columbia and as far east in North America as Minnesota, it lives in the greatest numbers on the islands off the north-central coast of BC. Scientists estimate there are 1,200 black bears as well as white Kermode bears in the coast area that stretches from around the northern tip of Vancouver Island northwards to the Alaska Panhandle. Unfortunately, on this day, there were no sightings of the great spirit bear, but watching these lumbering giants fish and meander up and down the stream is well worth searching them out. Back at the lodge, some guests decide that it's time to relax before heading back to Vancouver tomorrow. Northwest Outdoors fishing host Hobart Mans decided to go out and try the evening bite with resort guide Ken Beatty.
Well, what we're trying to do is we have a what's called a bucktail fly. We put them literally right into the surface, so they're just making a wake. And to make it a little bit more seductive for the fish, we've thrown on a little spinner, or just a little spinner blade right in front of the fly. There's two ways we can attract the fish up to the surface if we're not getting a lot of luck like we aren't. The first way is we can just put the flashers down below, right below the flies, about 5 feet. That attracts a little attention. Or what we can do is what we're doing now. So we've got the downriggers with flashers and hoochies, so if we get a fish and we bring him up, he'll maybe bring a couple friends with him, and then they'll take the fly, and that's very exciting, because they're very excited at that point. One of the fish is hooked, he's acting very erratic, they think something's going on, and they just attack the flies on the surface, and that's really what we want to see.
And the flies themselves are basically two hook bucktail patterns, green and white, blue and white, silver, little mylar colors in it.
Yep, absolutely. Fairly standard, fairly slim patterns, mostly imitating bait fish, needlefish, herring, whatever you have in the area. This was really pioneered on Vancouver Island, and it's been around for a while, but it's a technique that's very rarely used. And it's not as productive as downrigger fishing. It's very exciting when it's
much
on.
more spectacular when the fish is on.
Yeah. Now we're not having a lot of luck tonight, and could be there's a lot of feed in the area, so the fish are down, they're full, they're not eating.
Tide, color, a lot of things. But the ones yesterday, like you said, it was just like a submarine was, or jaws, or a marlin or something was coming up to take that fly off the surface, and like you say, they're cutting, they leave a little teeny wake.
I think we've got a fish over here, Hobart.
Time for you to go to work.
Yeah,
That's your side of the boat.
Well, let's if this guy, there he goes, pull him up and see if he brings a friend up to hit these flies.
I'll get the fly one. You can have, you stay with that one.
Thanks,
If one of them comes to the fly, I'll go to work. And
whoa, that's a nice fish.
He is a piece of dandy coho. We caught some
Oh, he is a nice coho. Look at that.
wonderful ones out here last night. What, 13, 14 pounds?
Yeah, this guy looks like he's part of the same school. Slightly colored. Nice fish.
Yes, he is.
Very nice fish. Look at that, just that little bit of color into him.
They get that bronzing effect to them, and they get ready to think about entering streams.
Oh, geez, that's a strong fish.
You're a big, strong guy, too.
Wow.
Come on.
Jeez. Thanks for noticing, Hobart.
I think that fish got up
I
here.
really appreciate it.
That fish took a look at the boat and said, I don't like those guys. I don't like them at all. And I'm not going to bring any of my buddies to
He
your
didn't
fly.
bring any of his buddies for the fly. That's a little bit of a shame.
That's
That's a gorgeous
bummer.
fish. Look at that.
It is. He's going to do,
That's beautiful.
and they're strong too, because we didn't have those ones.
They're all big males.
The other day were all males. They
Yeah.
were all little bronze, and they were
Do you want me to go grab them? Here, you hold the line.
Yep.
I'll just come around and... Should we pick this one up, have a little look at him?
Yeah, I think we want to.
Okay, I'm just going to put this
Rod over there.
here. And see if I'll get him by his tail. Now, he might just take off if I do that.
After we can keep this in.
Okay.
Come on, fish. We'll get him up
So
there
this is
where you can get to
a
him.
saltwater pickup without a net. This is going to be very interesting. As soon as I touch him, I predict he's going to take off. Try it again. There we go. Look at that. Look at that.
That's
Not a
beau-
mark on his scales there. Just
That's
perfect.
a beautiful fall coho. You've got a male with a nice kipe on his nose there. That color says he's probably 10 days from going up some creek someplace around here.
Yep.
The bucktail fly is very popular in British Columbia. On the resort's fly tying table, guide Ken Beatty shows how to make your own.
Now the fly we're going to be tying is going to have green bucktail and yellow bucktail. We've kind of dubbed this the Kermit fly due to its colors. And it's going to have a pink head, and I'm going to use pink thread throughout the entire thing. So I'm going to start by putting a nice base of thread onto this hook. And the rotary vise allows me to spin that very quickly and very easily. I want to make sure that my mono comes right on top, so I do nice easy wraps first and have a look to see if that hook's straight up and down, which it is. I want this back hook sitting straight up and about an inch in between. Now what we've done is put mylar on the base of the hook. It looks a little more like a bait fish. It looks scaly, shiny, adds that little bit, and I didn't want to leave a pure pink body to that fly. I've already cut some yellow bucktail off of our calf, and we just need about a finger amount. And we want to place that on top and measure it up so that it comes dead even with the back of the hook. Once it's trimmed, I then want to tie the whole thing down, and lots of nice strong wrap so it doesn't get pulled out. Next step, we're going to put on some holographic Flashabou. This stuff is glow in the dark, and it's a nice pale green color. Kind of contrasts well with the yellow. I'm going to cut it a little bit further back from this head so that I get a nice tapered effect when I tie this one down. I'll show you how that works. There we go. Again, I'm going to grab a fingerful of green bucktail. I want to hide all my different colors of my fibers in there. There we go. That's the bucktail fly. Very simple to tie, very effective on BC coho in shallow water, right below the surface. It's a very exciting way to fish, and you can do it too. They're not hard flies to tie, and I invite you to give them a shot. Have a good time.
The next time you want to smoke your own salmon catch, give this delicious and simple brine recipe a try. Hobart visits with the resort's on-site chef.
We're here with Alex this morning, and he's going to show me a new recipe on smoking fish.
Hi. Yeah, this morning I chose to show you a little recipe that I really like. I cure the salmon here with half apple juice and half maple syrup, which will give it a really tangy and very nice taste. The salt I'm using today is a sea salt from Portugal, and it's an unrefined, untreated, uniodized salt. I prefer using those kinds of products because nowadays the iodized salt has a different taste and a different result in the texture of the fish. So the only thing you have to do here is mix both together. I've got apple juice in here that I've reduced by half. I boiled it down half the way, and I mixed it with the maple syrup. So here I've got the salt, maple syrup, and apple juice. So one thing that I think is really important is for the people who are gonna smoke fish to taste their brine, just to give them an idea of how salty the fish is gonna be. So that's not too salty. It's gonna have a nice finish, I think.
Yes, it will. It's going to be quite good, as a matter of fact.
So I'm just gonna pour. You make sure that the fish is all the way covered with the brine. And there's so many variation that can be added to those kind of process. So I chose a rosemary, which will go really well with the apples. Okay, so I'm gonna put the rosemary on the bottom and put the fish flesh down on the rosemary in the brine and push it down. So
How long will you leave it in the brine?
I'll leave it in the brine for 24 hours, and the next day when you take it out, you rinse it under fresh water, take the excess salt away, and leave it to dry at room temperature for about 8 hours before putting it in the smoker. That'll give it a nice dry finished product.
This is what it would look like some 8 hours later before you put it in the smoker.
Yeah, exactly.
Then you're going to leave the rosemary on it as
Yeah.
you smoke.
Yeah, it'll give it a little extra flavor, I
Good.
think.
Going to put it in the smoker.
Yeah, we're gonna put it in the smoker and leave it in there for about 8 hours. No heat at all when I smoke my fish. Cold smoke and dry. So I'll
And-
leave the vents open to make sure all that moisture get out of the smoker.
What kind of wood are you going to be using?
Well, since we're using apple juice in the curing process, I'll be using apple wood. That'll give it a great finish.
So really we're looking at a simple recipe combination of apple maple salt, rosemary for spice, the curing process of 24 hours in the brine, 8 hours in the dry, and 8 hours in the smoker.
Exactly.
and cold smoke.
Cold smoke will keep the dryness, keep the moisture away, keeping those vents open.
Here are the ingredients for you to try this recipe at home. Learn more about this episode number 1511 by going online to northwestoutdoors.org. On the next Northwest Outdoors, it's eagles and mountain bikes. Raft the Skagit River in northwestern Washington state to observe wintering bald eagles.
The best days to see eagles are the rainiest, most miserable days.
Also, head to the mountains outside Leavenworth, Washington to go mountain biking. That's on the next Northwest Outdoors.
You want to make sure you know what the takeoff looks like and what the landing looks like before you hit anything for the first time.
Funding for Northwest Outdoors is made in part by Kershaw Knives of Portland, Oregon. Makers of precision tools and cutlery, Kershaw Knives strongly supports outdoor programming as well as responsible outdoor activities throughout the Pacific Northwest. Subaru, engineered and designed for all types of activities in the great outdoors. Subaru believes that enjoyment of the Pacific Northwest should be available to everyone. The Hap and Louise Eisenhart Fund. The Eisenhart Fund is a proud supporter of public television throughout the United States, placing an emphasis on education for the great outdoors. The growth of the Pacific Northwest the past few years and the increased demand for electricity is important to all of us. We at Energy Northwest are doing our best to support this demand by producing safe, reliable electrical power today and for our future.